All right, so today we're going to be talking about airworthiness requirements. So a couple things we're going to go over. We're going to talk about defining what it means for your aircraft to be airworthy. We'll go over required documents, required inspections, required equipments for VFR day and night, and then what to do if you don't have some of that equipment or it's inoperative. And then we'll also go over a couple written test questions. All right, so defining airworthiness. FAR 91.7 says no person may operate a civil aircraft unless it is an airworthiness condition. So what does that mean to be airworthy? It pretty much just means that your aircraft is safe to fly and it's complying with any type certificate, things like on your type certificate data sheet. So to find your type certificate data sheet, you can go to the FAA website. You can click on this link. You're going to scroll down to technical information, and you have this link here, type certificate data sheets. You're going to click on that, go to TC holder. We're going to choose Piper because we're going to find the Piper Archers that we use at Purdue. And we are the PA 28181. So right here, I'm going to click on that, click apply, and then it's right down here. You can click on that. And this will tell you everything about the aircraft and what you need to comply with. So we've got a Lycoming, horizontally opposed 320 B2B. Got all of our V speeds. Okay. Yep. All right. And yeah, so the two factors that determine if an aircraft is airworthy, it must be in safe condition for operation. So do a thorough pre-flight, make sure you check everything, follow the checklist that Purdue gives you, and make sure there's no damage or anything wrong with the plane. Make sure there's enough oil, enough gas. And then the person responsible for maintaining the airworthiness condition is the operator and owner, but the pilot in command is responsible for ensuring that it is safe. So doing the proper pre-flight, pilot in command shall discontinue the flight if it is unairworthy. So some of the required documents, we're going to use the acronym ARROW. So that stands for airworthiness certificate, registration, your radio station license, your operating limitations, and your weight and balance. One thing I will note here is that for operating limitations on a check ride, especially with Larry, make sure you don't say operating manual. It will be in the operating manual, but he likes to hear operating limitations, and we'll talk about why in just a minute. All right, so the airworthiness certificate. This comes with each aircraft. It means the aircraft meets the design and manufacturing standards and is in condition for a safe flight. So each aircraft will have one of these and it does not expire. It's good for life. If you don't have it, the airplane is no longer airworthy. And it has to be displayed in a position that both the passengers and crew can see it. So thought I had a picture there somewhere. There we go. So here it is in a Cessna. In the Piper Archers, it's in the back seat on the side. So pilots kind of have to crane their head a little bit, but it should be there. The registration. So this is going to be located in the binder that we have in the Piper Archers. But this is another required document. You got to have it. This one does expire. It has 2 registrations. The state is valid for 1 year and the federal is for 7. Yeah, it looks like in the Cessna, they're both in the same spot there on the side. Your radio station license. So we don't really need to worry about that because we are not going to be going outside of the contiguous 48 states. But if you are, you will need a radio station license. It's issued by the Federal Communications Commission, so not by the FAA. All right, so your operating limitations. These can be found in an FAA-approved airplane flight manual or the pilot's operating handbook. Ours is probably going to be in the pilot's operating handbook, but this is specific to the aircraft. So this is why Larry doesn't like to hear operating manual because say the Piper's POH is on the website and that's the same for all Purdue planes, but the operating limitations are going to be a little bit different for each specific aircraft. So you can find all of these in the plane, in the binder, in the back seat. All right, weight and balance data. That's our W. This again is going to be very specific for all aircraft, and that can also be found in the back of the binder. Yeah, so like I said, Purdue 50s weight and balance data is not going to be the same as Purdue 57s. Whenever I calculate weight and balance and I don't know what plane I'm going to be in, I actually use Purdue 57s because it is the heaviest out of all of Purdue's aircrafts. But you can find the weight and balance data, the basic empty weight for each of Purdue's airplanes on the Purdue Flight Ops website. All right, and required inspections. All right, so you need those documents and you also need to make sure that you have all of these inspections completed before each flight. You can use this acronym, aviated, or I know some people use aviate, and instead of having the D for airworthiness directions, they just have another A for airworthiness directives. Okay, so the first A is you've got the annual inspection. VOR check, that is for instrument use only. So actually for VFR flight, we don't need the VOR inspection. You got the 100-hour inspection, altimeter and pitot-static system inspection, transponder, your ELT, and make sure that you've complied with all airworthiness directives. All right, so your annual inspection, it's pretty much what it sounds like. You need it every 12 calendar months. It can only be completed by a mechanic endorsed with an inspection authorization or an IA. This is a complete inspection of the aircraft and engine. All right, so your annual inspection, you need it once a year, and if you pass the 12 calendar months, you can fly with a special flight permit only to get to a location to perform the annual inspection. So the special flight permit is issued by the FAA to an unairworthy aircraft that is still safe for flight. All right, the VOR check. This is every 30 days instead of every 12 calendar months. And it's only needed for IFR flight. This can be performed by a pilot. You're going to record it with the date, the type of VOR check done. So they did a dual check and they said that it was less than 2 degrees off the 259 radial. And then it gives that VOR. Yeah, so this it's got to be logged in the view. There's a place for that in the binder, in the back of the plane at Purdue, in the Purdue planes, just like all the other inspections. All right, so the 100 hours inspection. You only need the 100-hour inspection for aircraft being used for hire. So if you were just flying around for fun, if it's just used for GA purposes, you do not need the 100-hour inspection. But at Purdue, we do because we are using them for flight training. One thing to note is that the annual can be performed instead of the 100-hour, but the 100-hour cannot be performed instead of the annual. This is because the 100-hour does not need to be performed by a mechanic with an IA. So yes, this is what it looks like in a normal maintenance logs, and I have pictures of Purdue's maintenance logs later on in this discussion. All right, so the 100-hour inspection cannot be exceeded by more than 10 hours. So say if you have a 100-hour inspection due at 1489.9 and you don't get it done until 1494.9, you still have to do the next 100-hour inspection 100 hours from when the last one was due. So you'd still need to do the next one at 1589.9. That is a common written test question. All right. Yep. Like I said, the annual can be a substitute for the 100-hour, but the 100-hour cannot substitute for an annual. Okay. The altimeter and pedostatic system. This is required every 24 calendar months. It's usually done more often than that, and we will get into when Purdue does theirs. Transponder, same thing, every 24 calendar months. You're going to need a transponder if you're in a Class A airspace, Class B, Class C, or over 10,000 feet or in the Mode C Vale. And then your ELT. So this is required for all aircraft every 12 calendar months to be inspected, and you might need to replace it if you've used it for more than one cumulative hour, or if you've used 50% of its useful battery life, then you need to replace it. All right. And then airworthiness directives. That's our last one. Make sure that all airworthiness directives are complied with. These are issued by the FAA, not the manufacturer, with special things to comply with to ensure that it is safe. You've got two different types, recurring and non-recurring. Non-recurring, you just need to do once, so we shouldn't need to be too worried about that. Recurring, you need to do it every certain number of hours or certain number of months. And I'll show some examples of Purdue's airworthiness directives. All right, yeah, airworthiness directives come in many different forms. One-time inspections of the part, periodic inspections of the part. Here are a couple examples. We won't go into those. I'll go into examples with Purdue's. One thing that Purdue does is progressive maintenance. So all of those inspections we do in this program that we have. This is on the Purdue's website, and it would be a good thing to have downloaded onto your iPad. This is definitely something that you're going to need to talk about on the check ride. So every 50 hours, we do a routine inspection, which is oil change, oil filter, brake reservoir check, propeller inspection, operational check, tire and brake inspection, and operation check of lights, pitot heat, and stall warning. And then every 100 hours, you have an event. And so you have 4 events until you do the entire cycle over again. So event 1, cabin, fuselage, empennage. Event 2, engine, propeller, and they're also going to do all these things below. Yeah, so you do an event every 100 hours. And every 4 events, you have a cycle. Here's what those look like in the Purdue maintenance logs. So the Purdue maintenance logs are located in Hangar 6 in a room. On a normal discussion lesson, I would show the student where those are, but I also have a picture of them in the next slide. But on the left here, we've got all of our routines and events written down and when they're next due. And then on the right here, we have our cycle number. So we're working on cycle 7. So that's every 4 events is a cycle. And this is going to be located in the aircraft inspection status section of the maintenance logs. The maintenance logs can be a little hard to navigate, so I would show the student where exactly all of these are. All right, and then in the airframe section of the maintenance logs, you can find the other inspections. So most of the important ones they have highlighted. So here we have that the ELT inspection occurred and it's due for replacement 7/20/26. And then on the right here, we've got another one. This one is a little bit tricky. This one here on the bottom where my cursor is actually the transponder and altimeter inspection. It says altimeter here, but it does not say transponder. Instead it says 14 CFR 91.4111 and 91.4113. That is the transponder and altimeter inspection. So that's kind of hard to find. You got to really look for it. And be ready to point that out on your check ride. But luckily, we don't have to go to the maintenance logs every single time before we fly, because when dispatch gives you your key, it'll have this card in it that will tell you what cycle you're on and when all of your inspections are due. So you just take a look at that card and make sure they're all up to date and you should be good to go. All right, preventative maintenance. So simple or minor maintenance operations that can be done by certified pilots. So if you have your private pilot's license, you are allowed to do preventative maintenance. So you can replenish hydraulic fluid, replacing safety belts, replacing or cleaning spark plugs, replacing a landing light bulb. One thing that we do routinely is add oil to the plane. So I think that can be considered preventative maintenance. Now, a lot of these things, replacing and cleaning spark plugs, don't do that if you're not comfortable and confident that you can do that. But you can also, we're going to click on this link. You can go to this website and just kind of scroll down to part C. Sorry, I got an ad popping up. Yeah, scroll down to part C, preventative maintenance. Is limited to the following work. And then you can look on this. If the maintenance you want to do is not in this list, don't do it. Get a mechanic to do it. All right. All right, and if you are performing any maintenance, you must record it in the maintenance logs. Write a description of work, date of completion, and then your name, your certificate number, and the type of certificate held. So here's just an example down here. All right. Required equipment for VFR day and night. Day VFR, A tomato flames, night VFR, flaps. Those are acronyms that we're going to use. You'll definitely get to know them pretty well throughout your training. Those can also be found in 91-205. I would also memorize that number because if you are in a check ride scenario, or if you just need to know what your required equipment is, you can look that up really quick in your FAR AIM to get that list. So 8 tomato flames, we've got the altimeter, the tachometer, oil pressure gauge, manifold pressure gauge, airspeed indicator, temperature gauge, oil temperature gauge, fuel gauges, landing gear position indicator, anti-collision light system, magnetic direction indicator, emergency locator transmitter, your ELT, and your safety belts. I will say one thing, the magnetic direction indicator, in a lot of aircraft, this is going to be a compass, but in the Piper Archers, we do not have a compass. So, but we do have a magnetic direction indicator, and that is in the ADAHRs for the G1000. All right, and then we also have flaps. This is for night VFR. So for that, we have fuses. This is not required if the aircraft uses circuit breakers. So we have circuit breakers, so we do not have fuses. Landing lights, anti-collision light system. So that is on here twice, if you notice that. Got the position lights, which these are just our nav lights, and then a source of electricity. And in the aircraft that we fly, the Piper Archers and in a Cessna 172, that's going to be an alternator. Okay, so if you're doing your pre-flight inspection and you notice that one of these items is inoperative, what do? So first you can check to see if the aircraft has an MEL. Our, oh, the Piper Archers do not have an MEL, but you can see if they do, and if not, you can go to 91-213, section D, and it's going to ask you a couple questions. If it does have an MEL, and an MEL is the minimum equipment list, see if that piece of equipment is on the minimum equipment list. If it is not, then you are okay to fly. But if your plane doesn't have an MEL like ours, you ask yourself the following questions. Is it in 91-205, 8 tomato flames? So say that your landing lights aren't working. So it is required by 91-205. Is it an airworthiness directive or is it in a KOEL? KOEL can be found in the POH, in section 6 of the POH with the weight and balance. Is it a VFR day type certification? Oops. If you answered yes to any of these questions, the plane is not airworthy. If you answered no to all of these questions, you can remove it and deactivate it. You can remove it or you can deactivate it and placard it inoperative. And you would have to go see the mechanic to do this and then put it in the maintenance logs. But that is something that we can do. I know that on one of the Purdue planes, the fan is inoperative. And since we don't need that, they just placard it inoperative and we just don't use it. Okay, so here are a couple sample written test questions. First one, no person may use an ATC transponder unless it has been tested and inspected within at least the preceding. You guys remember what it is? It is 24 calendar months. So the transponder and the altimeter is 24. The ELT is 12. BOR is 30. So yes, 24 calendar months. That's just a memorization thing. An aircraft's annual inspection was performed on July 12th this year. The next annual inspection will be due no later than, so we know it's going to be the next year. It's not going to be on the 13th. It's going to be in the next, it's 12 calendar months. And what that means is you go to the end of that month. So since there are 31 days in July, it's going to be July 31st of the next year. In addition to valid airworthiness certificate, what documents or records must be on board an aircraft during flight? So, operating limitations and registration, yes. Radio operators permit and repair and alternators forms. You do not need repair and alteration forms. And you do not need the engine and airframe logbooks. So it's going to be this first one. Question 4, who is responsible for determining an aircraft is in condition for safe flight? So this is going to be the pilot in command. The owner operator is responsible for determining, for making sure that the plane is airworthy, but the pilot in command needs to ensure that it's in condition for safe flight. So those are two different things. And the pilot in command does this by performing a thorough pre-flight. Which records or documents shall the owner or operator in an aircraft keep to show compliance with an applicable airworthiness directive? Okay, so there are 3 options, and it's going to be the aircraft maintenance records. And these are all located in Hangar 6 and those stacks of books for each of the planes. Right? Maintenance records show that the transponder inspection was performed September 1st, 2023. The next inspection will be due no later than, so transponder, that's 24 calendar months. So we're going 2 years in the future. So we got 2025 and it's gonna be calendar months. So you're gonna go to the end of the month, September 30th. All right, preventative maintenance has been performed on an aircraft. What paperwork is required? So you're gonna need the date the work was completed, name of the person who did it, and you're also going to need their certificate number, so, and their signature. So I think it's this middle one. I know it's this middle one. All right, 100-hour inspection was due at 3302.5. The 100-hour inspection was actually done at 3309.5 because you have that 10-hour grace period. When is the next 100-hour inspection due? It's not at 3409.5, that's for sure. It is going to be 100 hours later than this, which is at 3402.5. All right, here we go.